Hi there, and welcome for the second time today. If you're catching us, it's the first time ever I think I've done that. I'm Martin Cross. This is Crossy's Corner, and I have an amazing oarswoman in the corner today, Gemma KIng, president of Cambridge.
Hi there.
Gemma, it's great to have you with us today. I know I really don't know how you found time in your schedule. What has your schedule been today?
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy day. So I got up this morning to go training this weekend, so I was catching up a bit of training that the others will be doing. And then I work in a lab, so I was in the lab pretty much all of the day. We had a lab meeting, which we have every Thursday. And then came back to Cossy, which is where we do lab training in Cambridge. I had an interview with Boa 360, who are filming for a documentary that they're putting together, which looking forward to seeing how that all turns out. Then I had weights, and now I'm here. So it's been a pretty busy day.
Yeah. How nice were Row 360 to you?
They were lovely. So, you've got a high bar to live up to.
Yeah. What did you reckon of those turning the tide? Because both of those years you've raced the boat race, haven't you? 2024 and 25.
Yeah. I think watching it when you're involved is definitely probably different to those who are watching it who are more external. It's really interesting to see all the stories and how they put it together and see all your teammates in front of the camera. Yeah, I really enjoy watching them. It's a great series.
Yeah, it is. It is a fantastic series, and they do really well to put that together. I was kind of looking your longevity in the sport, let alone the boat race, has been phenomenal. I mean, what age are you now?
I've just turned 26, so it's my 14th year rowing now. So
That's
been doing
so
it a
young.
while.
14 years. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, definitely started off a bit more chill than how it is now, but really enjoyed the sport. It's probably my last year rowing as well, so making the most of it.
Oh, how did you get to that decision?
I've got a job for next year after I finish my PhD, and I think it would be very difficult to manage both alongside each other. I'd definitely love to stay involved and might come back to it. We'll have to see. It's
Oh,
definitely going to be weird.
yeah. So we'll talk about when you rode at school. We'll go back to Hollis, but you give us a sort of run through of your boat race history from when you first went to Cambridge.
Yeah, so this is my 8th year at Cambridge. I started in 2018, so the 2018-2019 year. And I was doing an undergraduate course in natural sciences. So my first year I raced in the lightweight crew, and that race was in Henley. It was actually the last lightweight race in Henley.
Ah,
Then my second year was unfortunately the middle of COVID. Had been in Blondie and the race got cancelled really close to the race. So that was a big shame. But
yeah.
I think everyone was so affected by the pandemic that at least we got to train for some time during that year. And then 2021, we were allowed back rowing, and I was in Blondie, but that race was in Ely, so we still weren't allowed to race on the Tideway.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Ely. So my first race on the Tideway was in 2022, and I was back with the lightweights again. That was a super fun race. Had a great group of people. My first
Why
time.
why did you go back to the lightweights from being in like the reserve crew or the big squad?
Yeah, I mean, I was naturally at a lightweight weight, and we had an amazing group of lightweights that year. And we were really excited to see what we could do as a team. And it gives more people the opportunity to race. And it was still a race in the championship course, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
loved every minute of it. So yeah, that was 2022. And then 2023, I did Blondie again on the championship course. And then in 2024, it was my first time in the blue boat on the course, and that was such a surreal year. I couldn't really quite believe it all. We had a crew who'd most of us had come up from Blondie the year before, and then we were joined by Megan Lee from the States, who's off doing amazing things. Such a big fan. She's amazing. And then last year I was in the blue boat again, and I was vice president, so slightly different role in the squad. Really enjoyed being more involved in the sort of organisation and knowing a bit more about what was going on behind the scenes. And this is my last year, so we'll have to see what
Yeah.
happens. But
How hard was it to make the blue boat in 24 for you?
in 2024, I think we had a group of people who were far less experienced coming into it. A lot had come through college. So I'd say that year I was quite more secure early on in the season than last year. Last year, there were so many strong people pushing for those seats. But I think in 2024, that almost gave us lots of time to improve, work together. I was so worried about just sort of getting ill or injured or something else taking it
Yeah.
away, because it was my first time doing the actual like blue boat race, and everything, you just overthink everything because you want everything to go right.
That was a hell of a race, that 24 race. I mean, what were you thinking like for the first bit of the race up to, I don't know, past Harrods? You were down almost by Clearwater as well.
Yeah, so interestingly, in fixtures, we'd been in a similar situation. We knew we didn't have a very strong start, but we were able to walk back on crews. We had that strength later on in the race, and our fixtures were all quite short, so we'd never really been able to prove that. But
Ah,
we knew that once crews got ahead, we were then holding and, if anything, moving back. But they would generally get quite far ahead. So in the race, I guess because we'd practiced that so many times, it was just, oh, this is the same again. It took us a while to find our rhythm, but when we did, it worked and we started moving. And I don't think any of us really had any idea what to expect going into that race. And based off previous results through the year, we were going in as underdogs, but we knew we'd improved, we'd worked really hard together, and it was just amazing to walk through.
so hearing you talk, it sounds like you were just pretty cool in that first part of the race, and it was all just, yeah, we're going to come back. And was that what it was like, or was there any worry at all?
I can't say that necessarily was what was going on in my head at the time. um, yeah, I think when a crew gets that far up and you lose contact, you do start to wonder if it is something you can get back. There's definitely those thoughts that go through your brain. But all you can do is row as fast as you can and see what happens. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we did. I wouldn't say calm is a word I would ever use to describe how I felt in a boat race. It's definitely nerve-wracking, but you've just got to do what you can.
Do you say anything? I mean, being up there in the bows, you've obviously got a view of the opposition, or a feel for how the boat's moving. Are you chatty in the boat?
It depends. I quite like to sort of give an update if we're moving on a crew or not, but often mid-piece you are really struggling to get the words out. I
Yeah.
think that's probably one of the hardest races I've ever done, and I don't think I had much breath in me, so I might have sort of said moving or yeah or something very brief along those lines, but couldn't get much more out than that.
No. Yeah. And then the race last year was, well, I don't know if odd is the right word to use for the boat race, because anything can happen. You obviously blasted off the start more effectively than your crew did last year, and you talked
Mhm.
about it being stronger. Um, what were your thoughts when they came towards you and clashed and the race was stopped and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so we had a really powerful crew, and our first start I think was a really strong start. We had a really nice lead straight off the start, and it felt pretty good. And then there was overlap between the two boats and clashing, and one of the girls in my crew, Sophia, because the blades were so overlapped, she caught a crab, which is pretty much inevitable in that sort of circumstance.
Yeah,
And I guess it all happened so quickly that there wasn't many thoughts at that time. It was weird because a couple of days previously we'd visualized catching a crab by clashing and restarting. So pretty much the exact situation that happened.
wow.
And so everyone stayed surprisingly calm. It was sort of just, let's reset, let's go again. It definitely hurts a lot more doing a second start that soon to our first start. And I wouldn't say our second start was maybe quite as strong as the first, but it was enough. And I'm just glad that everyone was okay and we were able to finish that race, because it would have been such a shame for it to just be a, I don't know, 90-second race.
Oh goodness me. So I'm fascinated about visualization, and I I know it would be different for different women in the boat, but how much does that visualization come into your consciousness? Like, oh yeah, we visualize that, so that's good. I'll just click in. Or how much is it something at the back of your mind that might be useful?
I think at the time of doing the visualizations, you don't necessarily realize that they can be as useful as they are. I think it's definitely taken me a while to get used to them and find them helpful. And I think, in particular, just for the coxes to practice the calls and to get an idea of the race plan, it's useful. When we stopped in that moment, I wasn't really thinking, oh, we visualized this a few days before. But I wonder if that did contribute to why we were able to stay so calm, just reset and get back on with it. Also, Jack, our cox, was great. He basically just told us all to breathe, relax, reset. We knew what we were doing. And I think in those moments, that can be what makes or breaks the crew. So
Yeah, that's fantastic, isn't it? And is there ever a time? Was there ever a time in those two boat races where you allowed yourself to think, "Oh, we've won this race now," or does it not work like that for you?
it doesn't really work like that. You always are like, oh, what if this? What if that? I think I could be lengths up and never feel comfortable. I think in the 2024 boat race, if anything, I felt more comfortable once we moved up because we were moving away and
Yeah,
we'd moved through, and I knew we were moving at a faster speed. Whereas last year, the margin was smaller. I think we finished at 2.5 lengths up, which is definitely not enough to feel comfortable. Anything can happen in a boat race. You can go around a corner and hit very different wind and handle it differently. You can catch a crab. You can take the worst course and end up out of the stream. Or the other crew could just have a really strong push to the line. So I don't think I ever really feel comfortable.
yeah. And so let's have a look at this season. So you have this, or Cambridge, not you, but it's partly your victories have this amazing record of, is it the last 10 years being victorious in the boat race, and then obviously this year's another challenge, and the season started off with the head of the Charles.
Mm-hmm.
What could you say about that race result
Yeah,
of the
so
season?
the head of the Charles race, I think, is a great opportunity to get to race international crews, but it is so early in the year. And we're bringing in athletes from all over the world, from different colleges, with loads of different experience and different rowing styles. And I think bringing that together in sort of a month or so, which is all we have before Head of the Charles, is a challenge. And I don't think it really reflects what we're capable of doing. But I do think it is such a great opportunity to practice a race and get that under your belt. Um, I think we've come on a long way since then, and I'm really excited to see how that speed can translate in the future. We had a pretty crazy race, I'd say. So we did Head of the Charles last year and also this year.
Yeah.
This year we got much more of a Head of the Charles experience, let's say. It's a crazy course with boats right close to each other, and we definitely got to experience some overlap and clashing and all sorts, which again, great practice for the boat race, and just take that in our strides.
So from the outside, it kind of looks like, oh, over 20 seconds difference between the two crews, Oxford and Cambridge. That looks like this is going to be a bit of a job for Cambridge to register another win. Is that how? It doesn't sound like it looked like that from your perspective.
Yeah, you could look at it that way, but I don't think that's really helpful because if I look at the 2024 season, for instance, we started that year not rowing well altogether at all, and the progress ended up being enough on the day. And I think similarly this year, we've seen so much improvement over the year. And I think we'd be wrong not to look at it and be like, yes, we've got to work hard, we've got to give it our all. But I really trust the process here. The coaching is amazing. We've had a couple other athletes join us who weren't with us at the start of the year. And that was very initial lineups. And honestly, looking at everyone who was in that crew, the tech changes that have been made since are definitely moving the boat a lot faster. And So we've come on a lot. I'm sure Oxford have too. And I think that's what's so exciting. You want the race to be a race between two boats that are really fast. You don't want to be in a boat race where one boat is definitely going to win and the other isn't a strong crew. You want that race to be of a high caliber. And I think it's exciting just looking across women's rowing at the moment how many strong boats there are, and that makes it a much more interesting race to watch and be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fantastic this year. It would be probably best if the women's race was the final race and they put the men's first, because by all accounts, there's a disparity, certainly in terms of, personnel between the Cambridge and the Oxford squad. It seems to me that Oxford have a lot of strong people. Sorry, Cambridge have a lot of strong oarsmen in the men, and Oxford have a lot of new guys. So to me, the main event is going to be the women's boat race.
I think the reason they're typically when they are is because all the records are set on a specific tide historically. So the men race on the fastest tide and the women are an hour before that. So in terms of setting records and things like that, keeping them the same makes it much more standard. But it is something that would be interesting to see if that could ever happen in the future.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned people coming into the crew. Of course, one of those has been the US world champion, Camille van der Meer.
Yeah.
How's it been rowing with her? Obviously, you spoke of the experience of rowing with Megan Lee in the 24 crew, who is a powerhouse. I guess Camille's a slightly different type of athlete to Megan. How's it been integrating her?
Yeah, she's great. She fit in straight away, and I think she really holds everyone to a high standard. She'll tell us when things need working on, but she's also really fun, and I she's been a great addition to the squad, has fit in straight away. And I think what's amazing about having international athletes, I mean, for the past 3 years, I actually can't believe how many incredible rowers I've had the opportunity to row with, who I kind of pinch myself that I've been able to row with them. You can learn so much from them, but then also within the squad, you can learn so much from everyone. And so, whilst you've got these international rowers with so much experience, they're still learning from everyone else around them. They're helping everyone around them, and it's sort of such a community pushing each other on. And I think that's what's so nice about rowing at Cambridge is you can have people with so many different backgrounds, and everyone still looks out for each other.
So I know you won't want to single any particular woman or women out, but I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit, maybe give us a little pen portrait of who some of the characters. I know everyone's got a character, but in your squad, maybe two or three women.
Gosh, that's a hard one.
I know.
We've got so many. Um, two of the girls who are new this year, who are both from international, I think make quite a good double act. They're a lot of fun to have in the boat, and that's Aidan Renwaltz and Alex Wiley. On camp, we had a moment where we were doing some stationary drills, and a flying fish jumped into the footwell. Where Aidan was sat, and immediately she just stands up and starts waving her hands everywhere in the air. And then Alex, who was sat in front of her, turned round, and between them trying to get this fish out of the boat, it was just like a comedy double act. And they did get it out, but there were sort of scales everywhere and screaming and it's so funny. So I'd say they're definitely characters and bring a lot of sort of bubbly, fun energy to the crew. We've also got, I'm trying to think, because there's so many members of the squad who.
Yeah, I'm sorry to put you through this.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, you've also got people like Eloise and Karis who are returners, and I think they bring so much to the squad in terms of their experience and history and just their willing to help out and help lead as well. I think has really been helpful.
Yeah. I'm guessing, and you're talking about how much you enjoy it, that there must be a fundamental element of joy, despite all the early mornings and the blisters and whatever, in terms of your longevity.
Yeah, it is a weird one because obviously the hard sessions hurt and at the time they're so painful, but you look back on them and those are the moments you sort of relish. But I think the main thing that keeps me coming back is the culture and the club and the people. Essentially, when you're training, you're spending time with your friends, and it's like a family. And I think that's what gets you through the tough sessions. Yeah. So whilst at the time it hurts, it's a type 2 kind of fun, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think Cambridge has an incredible culture across the whole club, women's and men's, and I guess lightweights. Although I don't know too much about the lightweights, and I know the coaches work really well together. One thing I wanted to ask was, every year or every Olympiad, Jurgen Grobler, who used to be the chief men's coach, would kind of look at his program and say, right, we need to be, I don't know, 10 or 15% or whatever percent better. How much have you noticed, Paddy, sort of trying to up the program, the sessions that you do, the type of sessions, the length of sessions, the weights you lift, anything like that over your time at the club?
Yeah, I think it definitely has pushed on over the time I've been here. We're always looking for ways we can get more training in, make the most of the time we have in the morning. We're quite limited as we get the train to and from Ely in the mornings, and everyone's got to get back for lectures. So there is a very set window of how much time we can spend on the water. So it's trying to make the most of those minutes. And I think we've definitely managed to push the mileage on a bit, and that's hopefully gonna see the benefits of that over the years.
Yeah.
Um,
How much? How often are you on the erg or in the weights room?
yeah, so we train 12 sessions a week. So normally 2 of them are on the erg, and we have 3 weight sessions.
Hmm.
We're actually really lucky. We work with a company called Victus for weights, and that's a company who sort of it's run by a lady called Nicole who did weights for the GB rowing team, and it's really helped push everyone on. You've seen the numbers in the gym go up so much over the seasons, and I think that's definitely part of why we're all able to get so strong and robust over the year.
Yeah. Now I'm not going to ask you to tell me what your 2K PB is, unless you want to. But how have you seen that develop over the time you've been with the boat club?
I'd say definitely over the first few years, I saw really big improvements in my erg scores, and I have still seen some improvements over the last years. But what I've really been working on is sort of tech in the boat, and I think that's definitely for me something that's been something I've needed to work on probably more. I've never been someone who's hugely strong on the ergs. I'm on the smaller side, so trying to make sure that everyone in the squad can move the boats. At the end of the day, it's not who can pull the fastest erg scores, it's who can move the boats and not disrupt the boats. And we have some really strong erg scores, but it's translating that to the water as well.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously shot to fame, if I can use that, in terms of schoolgirl rowing, in the pair with your sister Catherine. How much pairs rowing do you do at Cambridge?
Not loads. We sometimes have a sort of small boats block earlier in the year, and I love a pair. I think they're so useful for learning how to row with each other, learning how to set a boat. I mean, if something's wrong on your side, that's you. It's on you. You can really identify things you need to change. You can learn how to move with another person. And if you're not doing that, the boat feels terrible. And I think it's definitely a really valuable tool. But at the end of the day, it is quite different to eights rowing. And we're trying to get the 8 to move as fast as possible. So spending some time in a pair, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
But most of the year is spent in big boats.
Has Paddy ever put you in the stern of an 8?
A couple of times, but I'm very much a bow seat person. I think I've probably spent about 1 session not in the bow seat this year. Um, yeah, I think coming from light rowing, and also I'm someone who's so used to sitting in that seat, trying to set up the boat, just following. It seems like the obvious place.
Can you describe to someone who might not know what the feeling is like rowing in a fast state in the bow seat?
Yeah, so when you're in a fast state, I think one thing you can do is you can sort of hear the bubbles moving under the boat. So if you really listen when you're rowing along, you can just hear it and you can feel the boat sort of lift up as you're rowing. So if a boat's going slow, it might sort of bounce around and move around a lot more. Whereas if it's a fast state, it sort of just lifts and sort of flies a bit more. You can definitely feel any movements in the boat a lot more in the bows than in the sterns. So basically, a still boat that's the bow is lifted out of the water is going to go fast.
Now, I guess that you use the Peach telemetry system quite a bit. How are you personally with the Peach system? I'm guessing you're not going to win any watt contests in the boat, but clearly, I mean, so I was talking to Noam Muel, the Cambridge men's president, and you know, before Peach existed, you'd think you had a really good outing, and then after Peach, it was like, oh, that wasn't so good, and it was about it.
Yeah.
The outing that felt good wasn't so good. How are you with all that feedback you get from the Peach telemetry?
I think it's a really useful system. I think at first it was probably quite overwhelming. When you look at the data you can get back from it, there's so many numbers and you can look at so much and read a lot into it. At the end of the day, everyone is going to have slightly different strokes, and it's trying to match them up. And I think it's really useful in terms of that. You're right. I'm never going to have the highest watts in a boat. I'm very much a sort of consistency person instead. So a long piece might hurt more, but that's better for me. But I think it is a really useful system for looking at consistency, for looking at power, for looking at your angles and how you're moving. So there's graphs that show sort of your handle speed. So I think that can be really important.
Yeah.
There's graphs that show the acceleration of the boat. And that can really show if you're checking it, which means you're sort of stopping the boat too much. And so it can really identify what you need to work on. And yes, you can normally see that from the outside as well, but it definitely can highlight and find and see smaller, finer details that you might not have picked up on otherwise. And it's easier to track improvement.
Ah, okay. There's a question here from somebody that's tuned in. Jack, nice to have you with us, Jack. And so I think you can see that, Gemma, wondering how much Blue Boat coaches look to the lightweight crews for future potential athletes.
Yeah, so we do all of our training together. It's very much one team. And if someone in the lightweight squad is strong enough to be in the Blue Boat crew, then they would definitely be looked at. We have telemetry data, we have erg data, we can see everyone. And so it's definitely not something that's out of the question. And if you look at the Blue Boat, there have been several lightweight athletes in it. So Katie Hempson was a lightweight, I was a lightweight, Rosa Millard was a lightweight, and Imogen Grant, and I'm sure I've missed a few others.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not out of the question. It can be harder because you're generally smaller and not always as powerful, but it's definitely not something that should limit lightweights.
How much work do you do with the lightweights, or are you mainly just working in like the two Blondie and the light blue boat?
We're all on the water at the same times, all the sessions are at the same times. In the ergs, we'll sit next to each other. On the water, so this year we're really lucky. We've got a slightly bigger squad, so we've got 4/8s out most days. And so that means we can have 2 pairs of boats side by side if we want. And I think that means that we're all able to push each other on more and have probably better matched pairs. So that should really help.
Now, you had your trial 8 just before Christmas, which is obviously a big thing. I suppose, particularly for women that don't know the tideway course. I'm guessing that was the first time Camille had raced, or probably maybe it's the only time she'll race the full course.
I'm sure it won't be the only time she raced the full course. Yeah, I think it's a really important race in the boat race season. it's as you say, it's the first time that we get to race that full course, and also for the coxes, just a chance to run it in the boat race direction. So we often do women's head later in the year, but that's not in the boat race direction. So yes, it's the full course, but it is in the opposite direction. And we have fixtures, but again, that's not the full course. We break up the course into sort of 2 or 3 pieces. And I think Trial 8 was, in the week we had loads of crew changes, meaning we got to sort of row with lots of different people. It was kind of different to normal. So normally I'd say the crews are more set earlier in the week, but this year we had so many changes that you sort of didn't know until on the day who you were going to be racing with. And whilst that might have felt slightly chaotic, I think it was actually a way of making sure you could row with everyone and accepting that on the boat race day, you never know what could happen. Like 2 people could suddenly be out and you've got to change 2 people. So if you look at it that way, it was definitely an experience to learn from. And interestingly, on the day, I think both crews had good races. It might not have been as close as we might have wanted it to be, but I think we got the outcomes and the benefits from doing it.
Yeah. Am I right to say, is that Eloise Etherington has won 2 Trial 8 races now?
I can't see enough off the top of my head, but probably she's doing well.
Yeah, but she looks to me like a real asset, quite a fluid mover, sort of very long and rangy.
Yeah, she's been sitting in stroke seat quite a lot this year, and from what I've heard, setting up a great rhythm, really easy to follow.
So after Christmas, you were off to Italy, where you had some special coaching help, I think.
Yeah, so we had Mike, who's from New Zealand, and he's coached several medal-winning Olympic crews. It's actually, his history is amazing. He coached Grace Prendergast and all sorts of incredible international athletes. So to have him on camp with us for the whole time we were there was really useful. I think the coaching we have at Cambridge is outstanding, but it's always useful to have another pair of eyes, another view, and just to look at things from a different perspective and a different angle. And what was nice was just to hear how much he saw that we had progressed over camp, and also he'd seen videos from us earlier in the year. And it's so much easier to see the progress when you step back and look at distinct points throughout the season rather than just looking at the day-to-day. And hearing that from someone who's got so much experience and is such a high caliber coach obviously does mean something. And yeah, he was really useful in calling people out.
Yeah, I bet it was great for Paddy to have someone like Mike Roger in the launch.
Yeah, I think from what Paddy said, yes, he was there to help us with rowing, but also there for the coaches to teach them different ways to look at rowing and different ways to coach.
Yeah.
And that's another thing which is great about the coaching here, is they're always looking at how they can progress their coaching as well.
Yeah, I think having a learning mindset is crucial, isn't it, in performance sport? Could you see any of Mike's little New Zealand foibles or habits coming out?
I'm sure some of them were. I think, yeah, there's probably a few different drills that we did that were more based on what he'd done back home. But at the end of the day, he really bought into the Cambridge style and helped coach that with Paddy. So I think they worked really well together as a team.
Oh, that's great. Now, Zabaudia, could you describe Zabaudia for people that don't know? And that partly explains why a flying fish is actually around, I guess, in your description.
So Sabaudia is sort of an hour or so from Rome on the coast of Italy. And when I say it's on the coast, so you've got the sea and then a really thin strip of land and then this lake, which is sort of, you can row for sort of 4 kilometers before you spin, almost 5 actually, 4 or 5 kilometers. And it's a saltwater lake because it's right by the sea. And so you have jellyfish in the lake. I actually didn't see any this year, but normally I've seen lots of jellyfish in the lake and flying fish. So yeah, that's where they came from.
So where did you stay on one of the coastal hotels, or were you in the town?
So we stayed in one of the coastal hotels, which was right on the lake. And
Oh, wow.
I think it's great because you can really just focus on the rowing. Between sessions, you can go back and get food, you can recover properly. You're not spending ages sort of walking to and from the training, but it means you also are able to have like talks in the evening because you've got that time and you're all together in one place. And that's something you don't really get when you're in Cambridge and everyone's doing their degrees. It's just that time to sit down and discuss.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of ice cream were consumed and cappuccinos drunk.
Yeah, a fair amount. Have to walk into the town to get the ice cream, so only really went there on our afternoons off, but it's very good ice cream. There's a shop in town that I've been to basically every time we go, and it does amazing ice cream.
So I'm guessing that, coming back from the training camp, you feel that the boats, because I get, I should ask, how much competitive work did you do? Are you doing like a breast paddling at like UT2 work, or is it just when you're together going hard that you race another crew?
There's a big mix, but generally the UT2 sessions are more sort of by yourself because you're throwing in drills and all sorts, but there were definitely some that we would do side by side. It sort of depended on the session, but there's a massive mixture. On camp, we had a variety from sort of static drills to pieces side by side, and I think that was a really good range to have. I think if you do every session side by side, you can start to be less internal, and sometimes making those changes within a crew are really important. But also at the end of the day, the boat race is a side by side race, and having that experience whenever possible is really useful.
Yeah, I'm just wondering actually, if you have a favorite drill or exercise, or there's one drill or exercise that you think, oh yeah, this really brings a lot out of the athletes and the way the boat moves.
Yeah, that's a tough one. There's so many different ones you can do. I quite like there's a drill called cutting the cake. So
Oh
for
yeah.
those that don't know, it's sort of, so you take a stroke and then you do your arms away and your body's over, but you don't take that stroke, and then you go back to back stops and then you take a stroke again. And so it's a really good chance to sort of practice getting that separation off the back end together, getting the bodies over together. And I quite like it if you do it sort of every other stroke, and then in those strokes in between, you can practice sort of how you want to be moving off the back. But I think it does depend a lot on what your crew is working on as to what drill makes the biggest difference.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't talked. Well, no, you haven't talked about you and Catherine. So clearly, twins have this amazing relationship. So tell us a little bit about your stories together and now. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, so both Catherine and I started rowing, well, 14 years ago, at school together, and I think we both sort of learnt to row. We're often in similar crews to each other. We would sort of alternate who would beat each other in different tests and in the gym, and we were so competitive, crazily competitive. But I think that really did help push us on.
Mm.
And then as time went on in the summer, we'd often end up rowing in boats together, and it kind of just clicked and worked. And I love rowing with her because whilst we would have sort of like bickers over little things, we were so honest with each other. We would tell each other if something was wrong. We would tell each other if something was right, and it just really helped push us both on. And then we both moved to Cambridge together as well, and we spent the first 4 years. So we both did undergrad here, and we were in the same crews while we were here. And I loved her being on the team with me, but we were so competitive, and that was quite a lot. And then unfortunately, she got injured in
Yeah.
2022. She slipped 2 discs in her back, and
Wow.
that sort of prevented her from rowing for a very long time. And how she handled that and kept going through that was honestly pretty incredible. I don't think I could have done what she did and be back rowing today. Yeah, it's actually kind of very impressive. And then she moved to Oxford. So I started a PhD here, and a year after she started a PhD at Oxford. And I think she's having a really good time there. She's loved her time at both clubs, and I think it's been really healthy for us to be in different universities but still rowing. And I think I do really miss being able to row with her, but occasionally in
Yeah.
summer we've entered some races and done a double sort of for fun, and it always seems to work and go well. She now rows bow side and I'm also bow side, so the pair's kind of out of the question at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited to see how she's doing.
Because the media's been a little bit interested that, you're twins but at different universities, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I think especially in the sort of 2024 season, there was a lot of media interest in that and the potential that we could end up racing each other, which hasn't actually happened yet. And who knows what will happen this year. But I wouldn't mind it either way.
Yeah. I yeah, it's really interesting. I think. I was going to ask you if you've ever come across or heard of or seen. There was a book by James Livingston, who was
I
at Cambridge, and his brother Dave. I think it's called Blood is Thicker
Blood
Than
over water.
Water.
Yeah, blood over.
Yeah, Blood Over Water. That's it. Yeah, great book. I wonder if you'd seen it and what you made of it in terms of siblings competing.
Yeah, I think from it was quite a while ago that I read it. From what I remember, their competitiveness was maybe slightly less healthy and really did drive them apart at times.
Yeah,
Well, I'd say in a way, actually, us being at different universities has almost brought us closer together, which sounds really strange when you put it that way. But I think we've actually had quite a different experience to the Livingston brothers. And I don't think it would ever have a massively negative impact on our relationship, even if we did race each other. At the end of the day, we both want our teams to do as well as they can, and that's all we can ask.
yeah. I think that's a really healthy attitude for sport. You might be familiar with Kath Bishop's book, The Long Win.
Yeah.
But this notion, certainly, when I started, which kind of I think was popularized under coaches like Dan Topolsky, that you kind of had to almost hate the other crew. And Oxford developed this nickname of Tabs for Cambridge and so on and so forth. Um, which I think gives short term but not long term game. And I think the model that you're talking about with you and Catherine is really sort of is one for for young men and women to aspire to.
Yeah, one thing I think Paddy really instills here is we can only control the controllables. We can't affect what Oxford are doing at all. All we can do is affect like how we train, what we do, and put out our best race. And at the end of the day, I have so much respect for all the athletes at Oxford. They're going through pretty much the same thing. They're training hard. They're managing tough degrees alongside it. And as I say, off the water, whenever I meet anyone from Oxford, we get on so well. But on the water, it's a different story. You want to win, you want to do your best, but it's very much so off the
Yeah.
water, great friends. On the water, you've got to do what you've got to do.
I want to talk a couple of things about your schoolgirl rowing because the first being that you were in, I think it was the semi-final of, well, it's now the Hambledon pairs, isn't it? I'm not sure it was called that then, but the
Yeah.
semi-final of an elite event at Henley. How was that for you at such a young age?
Wow, that was a crazy experience. Very lucky to have been a part of that. I think we weren't really ever expected to qualify, and then they only qualified 4 pairs for the event that year, which meant we were straight through to the Saturday of Henley. And super exciting. We ended up against I think it was Heidi Long and Hannah Scott who are now. I mean, you can imagine how that race went. To add to it, Catherine had actually been in hospital on a drip with food poisoning all week, but there was no way we weren't going to race at Henley.
Yeah.
It was like sort of a dream, and at the end of the day, the outcome of the race was not really in question. It was more, this is the chance to race on the Saturday of Henley. We want to do this. Let's make the most of it. And we zigzagged down the course. It was a horrible race, but the experience was so special. And just seeing all our sort of school friends there supporting us as well.
Yeah. I love that story, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about your mum and dad. Sort of health warning that Mike, your dad, is a senior colleague of mine at Hampton School. How have they been in terms of watching and supporting you through the years?
They've been great. For anyone that hasn't ever met my parents, they're probably the most supportive parents ever rowing. They've been at basically every rowing event and really bought into it. Interestingly, when we first started rowing, we did a lot of sort of other sports and music and things, and they were always like, "Oh, it will take over your life." Probably not the best idea to take it up. But once we decided to do it, they were so supportive. Our taxi drivers all the time. As soon as we were able to drive, we were driving. But they'd be at every race and following it all. And I think they can definitely see how beneficial it's been. And actually, they took it up for a little while in Weybridge. There was sort of the sort of wider tugboats. They took it up just for fun for a bit. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the two-tone hats that I think your mum might carefully put together or knit. I'm not sure you can buy them off the shelf.
I don't think so. So yeah, she got a light blue and a dark blue hat, chopped them in half and made two mixed hats. I mean, I'd say it's slightly embarrassing, but also you've got to respect them and love them for it. I mean, that's kind of their job as parents, right?
Yeah, I didn't know you had that competitive history with Heidi Long.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely raced, but it wasn't really a competitive race, I'd say.
No, no, that's fascinating. Okay, so last year was a difficult year for the boat race, which didn't really come out into the open until Cambridge Boat Club made a statement about the eligibility. Both with Tom Ford not being able to row because of was it a 12-year rule, and then the PGCE issue. How was that to for you to go through that kind of I guess experience? I don't know if it was trauma is the right word for it, where you had friends that were training that perhaps might not be able to row.
It was definitely a different experience and quite difficult at times. I think it was especially tough for the athletes involved, but I know that everything was tried to make it possible for them to row, and unfortunately last year that just wasn't possible. And the squad did the best they could to support the athletes, and I'm so impressed at how well everyone sort of powered through it all and still made the most of the training sessions despite everything that was going on. I actually lived with one of the girls who was affected by the PGCE situation,
Mm.
and it was a crazy experience, I'd say, and something that hopefully won't happen again. And I think we've all learned a lot from it, and hopefully moving forwards, everything will be much more set in stone. But at the end of the day, the squad really did still push forward,
Yeah,
race for them.
I did notice Matt Haywood, who couldn't row in the men's crew be, because of that eligibility rule. He was there at the finish of the boat race. I wonder if any of your squad were there. The PGCE guys were there.
Yeah, they were. And Matt actually helped a lot around the club with coaching as well and things, and everyone was hugely appreciative of that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, he's a super guy. So the situation now, I gather, is that the eligibility clause has been suspended. Is that right?
Yeah, so for this year, the 12-year rule is not in place. I don't know what's happening moving forwards, so we'll have to
Yeah.
see about that, but I'm sure that there will be clear guidelines put in place.
But there's nobody actually that is affected by this, I guess, at the moment, because there isn't anyone that old.
We have
Um,
one rower who's now rejoined the squad,
oh,
Lucy,
really?
and I think it's great to have her back. She's such a great personality and really just she just loves the sport and brings the energy, and yeah, it's really nice to have her back on the team.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's fantastic. So Lucy is able to eligible to compete in the boat race this year.
Yeah.
And I guess, like everybody, we're going to have to wait to see what happens with PGCE eligibility.
Yeah, I'm not that. I don't know what's going on with that at the moment. This year we've just said that until we have decisions, we're saying no for that.
Yeah. I know you must get asked a lot. So how different is it now? I asked Noam the same question, the men's president. Like, I know you were vice president last year, but how different is it rowing and trying to be, competitive in the blue boat and being the president as well?
Yeah, I think as president, you have to look at it from quite a different angle. You have to look at it from a more squad perspective and making the squad as fast as possible. You have to put your sort of own goals to the side. Obviously, you want to do as well as you can, but at the end of the day, you want the squad to be fast. You want everyone to make those fastest crews. It definitely has been a job that has been really rewarding. It takes up a lot of time, and there's a lot of sort of things that I hadn't really experienced before being in this role, but I think it's
What,
really
like? Can you give an example?
yeah. So one thing we do within the squad is I run sort of culture sessions. So we've had sort of 4 so far, and that was a very new thing for me to run. Especially the first one, you're sort of like, wow, this is completely new. How's it going to go? How's the squad going to respond? But they've been great. Everyone's really bought into them, and I think we've come up with a really sort of strong squad identity of who we are and what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, fantastic. So how does it work doing a PhD, like in stem cell research and training 12 sessions a week? Because I'm sure people would like to know that, because
Yeah.
you're at cutting edge of science, aren't you? I'm guessing, um, and you're at the cutting edge of rowing as well.
Yeah, so my work is very lab based, as are quite a lot of people's work who are in the team. And so it definitely does involve a lot of organization, but the schedule for rowing is worked around. So it should work around pretty much any degree, any program. So our morning sessions, we're back in time to get into the lab for the time that most people would normally wake up and get into work. And then our evening sessions have different times. So you can either sort of go earlier and work after if you want for a bit, or you can go at the later session. And I think there is that sort of bit more flexibility in that evening session. We have a lot of doctors on the team, and honestly, their schedules are far more difficult than
Really?
the
Yeah.
schedule because, I mean, they've got placements which can be all over the whole region, and so we'll often be training late or having to make up things at different times. And I think that really shows how dedicated everyone is. The fact that they will do that and sacrifice so many things to make it work.
How supportive is your supervisor or supervisors?
Yeah, my whole lab group is really supportive. I don't think they know that much about rowing, but they always sort of they watch the race. They always ask how it's going, and if there's sort of a day that I've got to go down to London for something, we will sort of look after each other's cells. So I work with cells in the lab, and it's very collaborative. So if I'll ask someone to help me someday, and I'll help them another day, just to make it work if people need.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, I don't know if you have you ever fallen asleep, getting up early and then really hard session, and then, like, is there a lab bench where you just like lay your head down and just catch a few Zs?
Weirdly, not in my PhD. I think I definitely got better at going to bed earlier over the years. I'd say in undergrad, there was a lecture on, I'm trying to think, Wednesdays, 11 a.m. lectures. They were always a struggle. They were interesting lectures, but their sort of second early morning in a row, and I definitely hadn't been going to bed early enough, and you sort of feel your eyes start to droop. But I definitely have got better at that over the years, and making sure I do get enough sleep, as it makes such a difference.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm sure some people do go to sleep, but I guess one of the things also people might be interested in is the image of students. Like generally, the tension is between their studies and a social life. Um, so, how would you describe your social life as a full-time oarswoman and natural sciences and then stem cell PhD? Where is your social life up to?
Yeah, I mean, I've been rowing for a long time, so it's probably just my usual now. But I do think there is definitely still time to make room for social life. We don't have early mornings every day, so you can still do things. You just have to
Mm.
be organized and plan things around. So I'll often do things at weekends with friends, because we have most of the afternoon and evening free on those days. So it's definitely just arranging things for when you are free. But at the end of the day, it's kind of weird. I almost do see rowing as a social sport. So
Ah,
like you are spending time with your friends in the breaks between sessions at the weekend. You're just sat around a sofa chatting. That's no different really to going to a coffee shop with your friends, and
mm,
we'll all do lots of things together. And people will work together in the day in libraries, and it's definitely just different. We don't go out to clubs like a lot of university students do anywhere near as often, but I think there's so many other social things you can do. Our weight sessions are always very social. Get some good music on and chat with
yeah,
whoever we're working with on the weights.
yeah. Um,
But
yeah,
yeah,
go on.
at undergrad, I definitely had a lot of college friends as well as rowing friends, and you just make time for it. If they're good friends, they'll understand your schedule and
Mm.
make it work.
So it's not like, say, after the boat race, you go sort of mad and uh, start drinking and going out to clubs and think, I've got a few months now where I'm not training so much.
I think you're always looking for the future as well. We often, after the boat race, there's other races in summer that are also very important. So,
Mm.
for example, we normally have Henley campaigns, and you want to sort of change from training from a 6.8 kilometer race to a 2 kilometer race. Let's just say they're very different. We often race at Bucks, which is sort of often 3 or 4 weeks after the boat race,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we normally have 2 weeks off after the boat race, so you sort of have 1 or 2 weeks to get these boats together and do a 2K race. So that's often interesting, but definitely a kickstart into 2K season, and reminds you that it's a very different type of rowing.
okay. So just outline for us now, like the stages between where you are now and when the blue boat will be announced, or when people will know that they're in the blue boat. Like what goes on and what should people look out for?
Yeah, so between now and sort of announcements, which I think are mid-March, we have fixtures. So those are sort of our internal races on the Tideway, and the first one of them is this weekend against Thames, and
Oh,
then
really?
yeah, so that's on Sunday, and then there'll be a fixture with the Dutch national team, and also a fixture with Leander, and then potentially a fourth one. And in addition to the fixtures, there's Women's Head of the River, which we hopefully will be doing. I think that's still to be confirmed.
Mm,
And then with all the other weekends, there'll sort of be selections, seat racing, trying to decide and finalise those crews. And it can be, crews can change after crew announcement, but ideally they'll be set by then.
yeah. How intense is this time of year, therefore, compared to other times of year?
It definitely is a pretty full on time of year. At the end of the day, this is when the pieces do matter more. The seat racing is starting to decide who will be in those crews. Um, so I think that can add some pressure, but everyone's in that situation. And I think you'd get that in basically any club that's training for an event. You've
Mm,
got to select a crew somehow.
yeah. some people are really good seat racers and seem to always rise to the top. Where are you with seat racing?
It depends. I think I've had a pretty decent run in the last few years, but you never know. The coaches are also really good. They look at a big range of things. So because we've got telemetry, they have so much data on everyone and so much information to build up a picture of how everyone's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you talked about you've got a job after your PhD's finished. And so this will be maybe your last boat race, or probably your last boat race.
Definitely my last boat race.
Okay, definitely your last boat race. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, what about you and the sport in 2026, 27?
Yeah, it's kind of weird the thought of stopping rowing, so I haven't currently figured out exactly what I'm going to do. Might still be able to scull at the weekends, but in the week I definitely wouldn't be able to properly commit to a club. And so I think having done the sport at such a high standard, I think it would be kind of weird to do it at a sort of low level. I think I'd find that quite difficult. So we'll see how it goes. I'm definitely hoping to stay fit and keep training. I've actually signed up for a marathon in December. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's in Valencia. I've never done that much running, but I think I just wanted something to give me a goal to work towards afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be interesting. Sort of sub 4 hours.
I have no idea. Hopefully, 4 hours. I'd like to think I can do it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder if your mum and dad will be on the course in Valencia with their dark blue and light blue hats.
My mum's gonna come with me. I don't think. I think my dad's still gonna be in work, so just me and my
Yeah.
mum.
Okay. Well, I have to wish you the very best of luck. I know it's always tough to make a blue boat for anybody, and very good positive vibes and wishes for you to be in that blue boat up in the bows again. But it's been delightful talking to you. I think we'll end the live part of this interview now, Gemma. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk and to share all those thoughts. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.